Yeah. Well, hello everybody. I'll watch the chat over here in case you have questions while I'm going along. Um, this is on Google Sheets or Google Slides, I should say, and this Bitly link will take you directly to a view-only version of this presentation. So the advantage of that is if you like this presentation, over time, I'll try to update it and improve it as I give it to more people. This is this particular slide deck's maiden version, maiden voyage. So we'll see how it goes. But I wanted to go at this as though I was presenting to myself a few months ago. I was hearing more and more about Bert and Roberta and these transformers, and I thought, oh, wow, I'd love to learn new things, but should I jump into that yet? And basically, this presentation is just as I've said here in the subtitle. It's gone from phobias to cool philosophical waxing. Basically, I'm just trying to share my learning journey in a way that'll save you time. And if you missed this, we'll get that in the chat near the end so that if you didn't get it all written down yet. So this is the way I want to take you through this learning journey I went through. And hopefully by sharing it in a story format, it'll relate to you more and help you get a faster start. But first, I want to go through my own fear escalations that I was feeling. I just started seeing things about first GPT-2. And I thought, wow, how are they doing that? And then, of course, there was GPT-3 coming along too. But the implications of a machine being able to spin up articles and do it fast, and for such a math machine like a transformer to do that in a way that it can be fine-tuned to a certain ideology, that's even more scary if you think about it. The power of the press released to automation and machines. And so they're really doing amazingly phenomenal things. And they aren't just helping natural language processing, or I prefer to just call it language processing, because in my current professional role, I'm doing what I would say is not very natural. It's technical language processing, and I'm finding that's a bit of a different animal. But they can make huge differences for vision and video and audio too. And there's many reasons why they're making these huge breakthroughs. They've also just been growing in size. This scared me too, and I'll explain more and more why these phobias, these fears were growing. But look at just in the last 3 years, really, I think there's another one, a new model beyond GPT-3 that's at 1 trillion parameters now. And the price tag, not just for the supercomputers training these, but the number of intellects working together and the power it takes, even that's a bit mesmerizing. I try to link most of these sources at the bottom for your further study enjoyment. But let's put some of this in perspective. How long did GPT-3 take to train? If you were to run it on something reasonable that you could pay for, 355 years. Obviously, it didn't train on a type of machine that you and I use day to day, though. It trained on a machine with almost 300,000 CPUs and 10,000 GPUs. And this 175 billion parameters, again, I think they're, again, I read something just recently about a 1 trillion parameter model, but trained on 1 trillion words too. And what are these GP2, boy, I can never remember exactly. Generative pre-trained transformer. I'll memorize it someday. The GPT becomes the meaning. So here's my second level escalation. I really like to be able to keep up with the latest capabilities, but I can't afford a supercomputer like that. So it also gave me a bigger fear as your fellow data scientist buddy out here in Southwest Idaho. Is this the end of AI democratization? I mean, can it only be these conglomerates of these big companies sponsoring a research group like OpenAI that can accomplish these things? That really scared me because I thought, oh, what would that mean technologically if no one else could get an edge on something so powerful? And then there's the other fear of just falling behind the times. Um, as I dove in to try to start learning these on my own, it was slow going for a while, and it felt painful. I started to realize, oh, I've always read really good books first and then jumped into technical journal papers. Imagine if you could only learn methods and arts by reading journal articles. You, to make really good sense of them without books, you'd need to look at them in a pretty carefully laid out chronological process so you knew how to relate one to the other. Oh, my audio is cutting in and out, or is it yours? Well, I'll keep going and I'll try to speak carefully, but I think it could just, ooh, okay. I don't usually have that problem, but I'll do my best. Let me see if I can do some things machine wise that might help.
Yeah, Thom, it does kind of sound like it might be like a loose cable or something, is what it sounds like for me.
Oh man, I've never had anyone complain about this. So that's
No, the audio
one
quality
second.
is amazing. It's just every now and then it does seem to be kind of dropping.
Okay. My USB for this mic was a little out, so we'll see if that improves it.
All right, perfect.
Thank you. So I decided to dive in for work, and just a little bit about myself. I'm lead data scientist for a business at UL called Prospector. And Prospector runs a SaaS that presents the world's largest and most accurate database for plastics, paints, coatings, personal care, and cosmetics. And oh, I see that I did the repeat thing there. And I'm really currently trying to automate data entry and data updates for those plastics and chemicals. I also run my own community called Integrated Machine Learning and AI, and please connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to be part of that. It's a great group. We're basically learning more together, and I do a lot of mentoring at scale with that. But it was for these kind of reasons that I wanted to dive in. I was facing some challenges that related to language processing that were very sticky. So I thought it would be good to get into this. And just to give you a little deeper explanation now, I have these technical data sheets for the plastics that we look at. And test standards, when we go from a manufacturer's technical data sheet to our processor SaaS level technical data sheets that we serve up and present on our SaaS, test standards pretty well aligned. Numbers, of course, I found it was better to write my own Python-based numbers finder because they can do, some of these sheets can do weird things with the numbers. But parsing those out without regular expressions, just using Python worked great. Units, not too bad. I know which units go with which test standards, but sometimes people represent the units with a little strange formatting, but there's ways to get around that. But it's the descriptive text. To me, when I look at these various manufacturer technical data sheets, it's like looking at colloquial technical slang. Whereas what we serve up is very consistent across all the manufacturers and suppliers. It's like the Queen's language compared to slang. So I started asking myself, can some type of transformer help me translate technical slang to proper prospector terminology. And then at the time, I was studying reinforced learning and having a blast doing it. And looking at multi-models and ensemble models. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to know how, as soon as possible, to incorporate transformers for the models that occur in reinforced learning based, when reinforced learning systems use models. And as I began to understand transformers, I realized quickly they're going to perform as well or better than CNNs. And philosophically speaking, too, I wouldn't be surprised to talk to these researchers at OpenAI and learn that CNN thinking was a big part of the inspiration for the primary type of architectures you see in transformers. And again, a great component for ensemble models, but what other opportunities would there be? So can transformers of various architectures help me with these various tasks and more? And I thought so. So my first reaction was to jump in and let the LinkedIn community know, hey, these posts I've been doing on my reinforced learning journey, because I was coding from scratch, even coding my own environments, just because I wanted to understand deeper what goes on with reinforced learning, to not, sometimes I feel like when I'm really wanting to understand deeper, the libraries and the modules can be like a crutch and hide some of the details. And I was so attracted to reinforced learning that I wanted to just even code my own environment visualization from scratch. And I'm so glad I did it. It helped me in broader ways than I could have possibly imagined. But then when I announced my switch to transformer learning and why, I also started a LinkedIn chat group of other people that were passionate to dive in and learn transformers with me. That was a huge positive thing there. And I started collecting papers, ones that I was finding, ones that others were finding, and just started sharing my learning journey. Then this guy, and I don't know how many of you've heard of him, Dennis Rothman, he starts piggybacking on my post, and not in a bad way. I don't mean that negatively. And he announces something big, but he's really hush hush. But it's just this big Transformers things that's going to come out. And I invite him to join our learning group, and he graciously consents, and everybody's so excited. And well, while we're waiting for Dennis's big thing, I learn all that I can. And one night, I was so frustrated trying to understand, to get over the hump with these questions I had about the architecture and the mathematical mechanisms going on. And I just hit the mother lode on these 5 YouTube videos. And the 2 that are highlighted in yellow, they are top notch. Sorry, this wrapped around. I didn't realize I'd done that. Top notch presentation of the mathematical mechanics and giving you an appreciation of not just the mechanics, but also the visualization, also the advantages of transformers over RNNs and LSTMs and GRUs. And so because these are so good, I want to encourage you. I'm trying to save you guys time in your transformer learning journey if and when you decide to learn them. These 2 videos I would encourage anyone to watch before they pick up a journal article or before they even pick up what I'm about to show you that's even better than those journal articles. I'm not putting down journal articles. I'm just saying, to get up to speed with transformers, it's not great to start with them. So, well, what helped the most after that community was built was some smart friends. And we finally learned that Dennis's big thing is a book. And I have some pretty good friends at PACT that it was coming from. So I literally begged them. I said, I will read it faster than the normal slow rate I read the books you give me to review. And I I made sure they were glad they did. And my biggest fear was I'd read it and I wouldn't think Dennis wrote it well, but no, he wrote it really well. And it is more like a beginner to intermediate, and it can take you to advanced operator manual for all sorts of transformers. It's just amazing. And the more I've gotten to know Dennis, he's basically this guy that's been doing advanced AI work for decades, and he's had to be hush hush, but he's getting in his older years now, so he's coming out of hiding and writing a lot of books now. I can't encourage you enough to. This is my review of Dennis's book. We'll go over it briefly, but he's got a YouTube channel. He's making some great videos explaining some concepts at a high level, and this link will take you straight to his all his books on Amazon so far. But this is basically a summary that PAC chose to highlight. They went on and called me one of their editorial reviewers. After looking through so many sources, I can attest that not only will this book help you get started rapidly with using, training, and transfer learning transformers, but it will also help you understand transformers in deep philosophical ways. I'm very grateful to Dennis for writing this book and for writing it very well. Now, Dennis and I are buddies. I'm so glad to be close to him. He's very helpful to people that connect with him on LinkedIn. And good news, guys, he's kind of new on LinkedIn. He's only recently come out of hiding, so he hasn't hit that 30,000 limit. Connect with him or send him a connection request. Tell him Thom encouraged you to do so, and enjoy a good friendship. He loves to help people master data science concepts. And I'm going to stop and just look at some questions real quick. Sir, I don't know. They seem like they try. Yeah, Josh, may be true. What? Okay, Ben, make sure that this presentation is designed to answer your question specifically. It's a mixture of things. When you go to Hugging Face, you'll find PyTorch, TensorFlow. It's make sure we cover that. I'm getting to these things. Now, this was another smart friend. This is one of those guys that's not very vocal on LinkedIn, but once you get to know him and what he's about, well, now this guy, Marcin, and Dennis and I, along with some other friends, we just have some very rich conversations now. But what am I trying to get at here? Connect with this guy. Tell him I sent you. He's a mathematical genius raised by a mathematical genius. And I'm even Dennis, when Dennis and I are talking about Marcin behind his back, and it's always good, said, this guy's not from Earth. His mathematical thinking skills are way over us. And but if you join, please, by the way, if any of you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, please connect with me. And I want to make you part of this community. We still have that chat group. We're not as active, but we continue to try to help each other. So far, do dive in, but start with those YouTube videos. Then go to Dennis's book. After you've gone through those videos in Dennis's book, it will be much easier to go through the journal articles. So then I went even a little broader. I started, after going through Dennis's book a few times, I started exploring on Hugging Face, OpenAI, Google Brain, Tracks. And this is the way, I know everybody's got their own pet data science definition graphic. And really, I should say multi-branch math and statistics. My statistician friends are always correct me. Thom, statistics is a science, not a branch of math. I'm like, okay, whatever. But really, I'm trying to respect them. So I need to update that with that. But this is the way I like to express data science. But the reason I put this human thinking statue here is to say this. Hardware is not really driving data science forward. It's certainly not holding it back. It's helping us. But to me, what's really pushing data science ahead is the ingenuity, mathematically speaking, getting very creative with the math and really wanting to address the human needs. You notice the thinker statue still got his head a little bit in the computing realm, but what I'm trying to say here, human ingenuity is winning again. Even though transformers are breaking the boundaries we saw in training with RNNs and LSTMs and so on, there's even smarter ideas coming out, linformers, ways to do the training of transformers even faster. Oh, Josh, I feel your pain. Luckily, I'm on good terms with those that I'm close to, but I feel it. So this is probably family on a presentation. It's the world we live in, guys. So this was probably the thing that was strongest in Dennis's book that made me leap for joy to realize, okay, we're not being, guys, quiet. We're not being held back by not being able to buy a supercomputer that has 300,000 CPUs and 10,000 GPUs. Here's a model trained that's 1,000th the size of GTP3 in parameters, trained with 1 GPU and 11 gigabytes of RAM, and it beat on one of the leaderboards GPT-3. Now, it was, in fair, GPT-3 is awesome, guys. It's zero shot or a few shot in this case. When you look at the way it's trained and the breadth of what it can do, it's awesome. But if you want to get a specific task done and you want to train something from scratch or take an existing model and do some transfer learning for it, we're still highly democratized. Let's see. Okay. Now, this is probably a central slide to this whole presentation. And again, I hope you can all get to it. I'll make sure we put that link, that bit.ly link in the chat so you can always get to this. So many of you may know that vanishing gradients are a real problem for RNNs and LSTMs, but because transformers are using the beauty of linear algebra in a graphical neural network format, they can do highly parallelized things. And that also results in the fact that, yeah, we had big O to the N problems with RNNs and LSTMs, are very serial, but self-attention mechanisms can operate at big O of 1. That's just mind-blowingly advantageous. So yeah, they train slow, the RNNs and LSTMs, but attention mechanisms, again, train with parallelization. And transfer learning doesn't always work very well. In fact, it rarely works well on RNNs and LSTMs, but transfer learning works very well on transformers. That's one of the reasons they're so popular. And I may be jumping ahead, but it just gets me excited to realize when people complain about the amount of resources and energy and time it takes to train these more advanced models, I think they could be missing the point. It's there forever now. We can leverage from it. We can take a transformer that was trained like that and specialize with it. Now, I'm trying to avoid looking at the chat right now because I can sympathize with the closed AI versus open AI. And, when they didn't share GPT-3, frankly, that scared the feces out of me. But realizing that I could take GPT-2 still and transfer train it, that got me excited. And seeing how some of these more specifically trained transformers could still kick GPT-3's butt on specific tasks, that just made me feel all warm and fuzzy again. But to me, the big advantage to transformers is the very clever ways that they tokenize their input data for training, and that they can use non-labeled data. That is yet another big win. And the architectures are so flexible. That's why Dennis likes to use the word Lego-like in his book. They can be only the encoder side, only the decoder side, and we'll go over some images of this. They can be both encoders and decoders, and there's even more variation than this. So, for example, this would be the encoder side, and similar. I mean, just high level similar. I'm not trying to be exactly technical here. Each side of this architecture, when we have those that can be both sides, they can be multi-layered, like layers of convolutional layers in a CNN, but they can also have multi-heads, and that just allows it to get more attention on more semantics, more factors that are involved in the data that the transformer is learning. But then when you do, and then so this encoder side would be like what, if you've heard of BERT, I think it's bidirectional encoder, and I'm forgetting something transformer, but by using the parallelization and that multi-attention, you can do a lot of language prediction, like next sentence type stuff with BERT. Whereas with GPT-3, which does even more, they're still maintaining this masked thing, which is basically a way, I'm speaking very high level because those details are better seen in those videos and in Dennis's book, but it's kind of a way of saying, I'm going to train you this way. I'm going to give you a word and you tell me the next word. Nope, you got that wrong. Do better next time. And it keeps doing that. Well, you can do that kind of training. Usually you see both sides if you're going to do language translation. And I'll show you an example of that on some real code. But this is fun over here. Here we've got a key value pair being fed in from over here. And then this is like a query. And so when you train them together, it'll work that way based on what I was showing you, and the sentence will feed back. Again, it would be better if we just watch this video so you can see it, but just trust me, better things are coming. And at this point, I want to open up this and just show you briefly. For time's sake, I don't want to rerun this, but this is the code you can get to that's listed for Dennis's book. I think you could get to it without his book. And if any of you want to just look at the GitHub repo, I can share that with you. But I copied this over to my Google Drive, loaded it in Colab, and it ran just fine. Basically, I'm installing tracks, or excuse me, importing tracks. I'm setting up the model parameters. Once that model exists, I'm initializing it with pre-trained weights. Then I'm tokenizing some input sentence here. By the way, I didn't write this, Dennis did. He probably leveraged it from examples on Hugging Face too, just so you know. And then decoding the output from the transformer, detokenizing and displaying the translation. And here, this sentence, I am only a machine, but I have machine intelligence. It's interesting. It translates to something like machine vision. He gave it a particularly hard one. For fun, I gave it an easier one. If any of you've seen some of my funny videos on LinkedIn, you know I have this huge dog. His name's Caleb. He's kind of almost more famous than me. But a correct German translation, in fact, it even took some liberties. It says, I'm Thom, instead of my name is Thom. And I have a big dog named Caleb. And so some fun with transformers, but again, to help you get started rapidly, Dennis has a ton of great code in the book. And so I'm almost done, so I'm going to finish and then I'll look at the chat questions. But so I started out with this fear escalation that got me in and realizing I couldn't wait anymore. I remember back hearing about BERT. I thought, oh, I have so much work to do, but should I learn that? And now it's a different thing. I'm no longer worried about having lost democratization of AI with transformers, because human ingenuity is still winning. Now I'm worried about how to find the best model for my needs and how to transfer train it, or how to train it from scratch, which is quite possible with some of these models. And But here's the big takeaway I wanted to give y'all. If you work through all the materials in this presentation, that is basically those YouTube videos and then Dennis's book, which has tons of practical examples. I think then if you go back to the cool journal articles, they'll make a lot more sense to you. For example, what I'm forgetting, my adjectives have left my mind, but the very important paper, Attention is All You Need. It's a great paper once you understand transformers. And so if you'd read all the research papers up to that point and understood them, you'd be fine. But even if you were that type of researcher, I think you'd still find great value from Dennis's book. And that's it. I'm going to see over here. Let's see. Okay. I see Josh has got a lot of funny, cynical comments as usual. And I mean that in a nice way, Josh. Let's see. Still two circle. Okay, don't want to be. What about squares? Okay, thank you, sir. I see that wit. No, self-attention. The modules are taking advantage of those essentially attentions like graph neural networks. And so it can do that high degree of parallelization there. And Divi, I'm stating this based on multiple presentations I've heard and multiple things I've read. Everyone agrees that now maybe quadratically slow in some way I haven't come across yet, but you may be speaking on something I haven't crossed yet. By the way, I want to point out, I didn't try to come to you as a transformer expert today. I wanted to come to you as your fellow data scientist friend who's just thrilled by the fact that these things have come onto the scene. And while RNNs and LSTMs were pretty cool in their day, we know the problems they presented us with. And that the title of that paper is hilarious in a way. Attention is all you need. There were some time periods where attention mechanisms were being mixed with LSTMs and RNNs. And some of my friends were trying to encourage me to go deeper into the historical articles. I'm like, I never liked RNNs or LSTMs. I always thought there was some way to do it better. I was always trying to think of a better way to do things than employing them on the more advanced things I was wanting to play with. I'm just glad I'm my hat's off to the brilliant people that created them for that time period. But I think they should go the way of the slide rule, frankly. And I'm not an anti-slide rule person. Okay, Ben, it took me from the time I started to the time where I felt like, okay, now I can go look for a model for my needs and have a clue what I'm doing. It took me 2 months. What I'm trying to do is create a presentation that will help my data science friends get into it in less than a month. Now, keep in mind, I had a professional reason to study Dennis's book full time. So once I got his book in my hands, I got a digital copy first. I was reading it probably more than 8 hours a day, playing with the examples, skimming it, going back to other presentations, trying to get my mind wrapped around things, testing Dennis's patience with questions, sending him errata that I'm pretty anal, so I caught errors that the packed guys weren't catching. And so I'm thinking in man hours, it'd probably take most of you around a month. I don't like to judge people for their learning speed. I feel like I tend to be more on the slow, thorough side compared to my neighbor. And then, but tend to have a sigmoid type learning curve. But I don't think it'll take you too long. I just think, Ben, you'll want to watch while you're waiting for the book to arrive, or before you start reading it, at least those 2 YouTube videos. Yeah, thanks, Divya. Appreciate that. Slow but thorough, right, Divi? That's us. And yeah, exactly. If you really want to make sure you're just knowing how to get stuff done. But oh, thank you for doing that, David. That way I don't have to do it, and I'm constructively lazy. So I really appreciate you typing that out. I think you really want to watch the YouTube videos first, all of them, because they give some great more detail on some of this history that I've gone over and some of the encouragement of democratization and appreciation for the internal mechanics and the speed at which they can be trained. All those, I'm not trying to say the ones that aren't also good. It's just that when I watched those two that were highlighted, it was like, damn, I want to learn to present like math like these guys do. It was so good. So what I'd like to do while we're, by the way, I've seen some transformer presentations and I don't think they're bad, um, where they're trying to show you the math and all of that. And I thought that is so hard. And when I know that I'm just trying to help my fellow data science buddies get a fast start in this area, that's how I wrote this presentation or designed it. I wanted you to see that you're going to get a cubic buttload of useful code from Dennis's GitHub repo that goes with his book. By the way, I am such a Dennis Rothman groupie now. I would encourage you all to buy all of his books, by the way. Explainable AI, AI by Example, Transformers for Natural Language Processing. I think there's another one. But just can't encourage you guys enough to subscribe to his YouTube channel, watch his existing YouTube videos. He tends to go at things very philosophically, which I appreciate. Okay, looking over here, I really appreciate. Oh, good, Ben, thank you. I think, yeah. So again, I tried to make sure this presentation was not here's how a transformer works, except talking very philosophically, but it's more how to help you avoid the start to learn it faster than I did, and yet given when I entered it and the state of things, I still got lucky and learned them very fast for someone slow like me. So what's cool is once you if you go do some, I actually went and did some good YouTube tutorial reviews on various applications of graph neural networks, because I think all instantiations of neural net architecture like encoders, autoencoders, variable auto encoders, Boltzmann's networks, graph neural networks. I love them all, deep neural networks, but I like to appreciate their differences and why you'd use one over the other. But this is roughly essentially a graph neural network. You'll start to appreciate what these forks mean when you watch those other videos, this add and normalization. You can see that we're doing these not feed forward as in a neural network, but this, in other words, instead of feedback, it's just literally a feed forward, but this is a feed forward neural network. And after each of these sublayers, we're doing adding and normalization. That's meaning we're adding what we had from here to whatever we got from the feed forward neural network. Oh, while we have some time. So basically that's it over and over. The one small difference is you see this double attention area here. That's that masking. It's basically saying, it's like a flashcard approach, basically. Masked multi-head attentions, like flashcarding this poor dumb transformer that's got to learn from scratch. But here's where the real magic happens. This input embedding and output embedding, this is nothing more than Word2Vec or glove. In fact, you could plug those in. And what's nice is they're enriching those word embeddings, those basically, let's remind each other of something very basic. All machine learning problems are math problems. So if you're playing with text, you got to turn it to numbers. And when you're working with a big vocabulary, or I like to call it a vocabulary in some cases, what are you doing? You're putting it in a huge hyperspace. And so you're creating these vectors for each word, but they lack any kind of positional information. We're actually adding positional information to each of those vectors with this positional encoding. And it just uses some simple trig operations to do that. But if you guys have learned that the convolutional layers are also trained through a unique form of backpropagation, and the first time you realized that, it got you as excited as it did me, that, oh, and I saw the math, how it worked. What's cool about these on both sides is you can do pre-word embedding, word vectorization, and pre-positional encoding functions, but you can also just let the training figure it out. And that blew me away even more. One of the videos you'll watch, they point out that these are just input by doing word2vec or glove or something like that, pre-trained ones. But you can let, depending on how you set up your training, you can let these be trained. But when they've let this positional encoding be trained, it comes out pretty much with what we put in manually too. So that's pretty encouraging. When you watch a convolutional set, the convolutional layer sets, when you see what they're doing, it's amazing that they figure out things we would have thought to put in there ourselves. So, oh, thanks, Ben. Okay, good. And then it's really good blog post breaking down transformers. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, good. And in fact, maybe what I can do here, I'm highlighting that Divi. Maybe we should, I'll just add that. Over time, I can add some things to this presentation, like here, just going to, what is going on here? Oh, there it is. Probably because I'm nervous in front of you guys and I forgot what I was doing. There we go. I'll just, important and helpful links. That way, good. This is already a more together effort. Yeah, I'll put some of these others in there too. Thank you for that, Divi. Am I saying your name right, Divi? I like to learn to pronounce names properly. Okay, cool. I have tons of foreign friends. I joke, I actually have 9 kids, my wife and I do, due to international adoptions. We have 4 biological kids, 5 internationally adopted. But now I have not illegal kids all over the world, but non-legal kids because of the mentoring with integrated machine learning and AI. And so I've learned to pronounce names from very many different countries now. Okay. I've really enjoyed being with y'all. Sarah's got me lined up to, well, Sarah, if you could chime in, are we going to try to move the meetups to in person now? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Thom. So yeah, I've been talking to Sarah, with Sarah about the issue, and yeah, we're going to host it at the ITC office. I've ordered some folding chairs, so hopefully there's enough space for everybody. We should be able to hold about 20-25 people. So it'll be great to see them in person again. I know a lot of people are probably looking for that in person. So if you are, and if you're local, definitely encourage you. It's downtown, right on 8th and Main, the Wells Fargo building.
Excellent.
At 6:30. So parking's easy. You can just park right under the Wells Fargo building. It's like $3 an hour after the first hour. So
great. I think I have to review, but Sarah's got me lined up to go through. By the way, I'm still just a student of reinforced learning, but I'm just addicted to it. And I think I'm going to be showing my from scratch tools there. And I'm looking forward to meeting with everyone. That'll be great.
Me too. Awesome. Thom, this was a great presentation. I won't lie. I'm not big enough data science person to understand a lot of it, but I definitely appreciate how far everything has come with the creation of these tools, that people can utilize them. Like in just that example that you gave, how little code, had to be utilized. So I love how iterative and how building upon each generation of tool has been. I remember creating a little thing to try to predict text entry in C sharp. It
Yeah.
was very basic, rudimentary. Like, okay, what's this letter? Well, the next letter should be this or this. If it's not, then what's wrong? But this is amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing. So really appreciate it, Thom.
Oh, no, it was an honor to be with you guys. Connect with me, and we can continue to the discussion. But again, for those that wanted to learn more about transformers, this presentation was just designed to save you time on your journey. Excellent.
Perfect. Any final questions? Anything like that before we go?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Ben.
And we'll have the recording up probably later this afternoon or maybe tomorrow. It'll be on the Idaho Tech Council website and YouTube channel. So pretty easy to find. There's only one Idaho Tech Council.
Excellent. All right. Guys, it was great being with you. I look forward to hearing the next presentation from someone else.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Thom. Thanks for everybody. And hopefully I'll see some of you at the Boise Science Data Meetup. The link's in there. And then also, of course, Thom's link. So,
all right.
have a great day, everybody.
Take care.